2 out of every 3 people live in a slum in Lagos where basic hygiene and social distancing is impossible, and there's a real fear that the poorest will suffer the most. One of the city's nurses said Nigeria isn't ready.
Please, I'm watching this CNN's documentary. I be BBC. They're all the same. All, all of them. BBC said that 2 out of every 3 Lagosians live in a slum. Please, where did they get these statistics from? Are they smoking? Oh my God. You know, I just feel like this Western media, they act like they don't have poor people. They act like there are no poor people in America or in UK, wherever they come from. If you go to America, California, Oakland, Maryland, Baltimore, there are poor people living in shanties. There are poor people living in the streets. But they will only show us White House, and Ivanka Trump. Or New York, stock exchange, all down Manhattan kind of thing. They will not show us where the poverty is. If you go to the UK, to London, there are broke people living on the streets, living on the road. But they never tell you those kind of stories. You never see it. UK media will only show you Buckingham Palace and what do you call it? And 10 Downing Street. All of us know the color of that door in 10 Downing Street by now. Go to China. In the rural parts of China, there is poverty, extreme poverty. There is a province called Hubei. Yeah. There is poverty there, but you never see it on TV. They only show you Shanghai, and the other capital. So yeah, these guys, but whenever they come to Africa, they will go straight to the bottom pit of poverty and make it our single story. I will give you a very simple example. Kenya is a country in East Africa. How does Kenya really look? Kenya has a well-developed capital, beautiful seasides, a lot of small towns, and a lot of professionals. But if the Western media wants to cover Kenya, what does Kenya look like in the Western media? It looks like an underdeveloped country with a lot of poverty and very tall people who live in beautiful countrysides, watching over beautiful animals. But it's a single story. It's incomplete, as Chimamanda Adichie, famous poet, will put it. So as the world battles a pandemic, we see another desperate attempt by the Western media to tell another single story, to create a picture of Africa in crisis. So that means they are cherry picking all the bad stories and ignoring the good ones. Personally, I live in South Africa, and I would say that the response from the presidency has been commendable, because in some provinces, they are even testing door to door. But I saw a Western coverage about coronavirus response in South Africa, and I saw something about people being locked up in detention camps, the homeless. The homeless were not actually locked up, they were sheltered in a place. Of course, there were some of them that didn't want to be there. But the way the story was presented, it was made to look bad. And most of their cameras were going to the rural areas, to where there is poverty and all of that. What I'm saying is, balance your story. Your story may not necessarily be a lie, but the way you angle it, it's propaganda. You know what I mean? When you come in to tell a story, tell the good, the bad, and the ugly, so that it's a complete story. And then people can make their opinion based on seeing a full picture. Don't just present one scenario. Just like when CNN showed a picture or an image of people running after food in Lagos, where they were sharing food and people were running after the news. And that's what CNN covered. And that's what they put out there. But CNN did not show our isolation centers. There are many isolation centers in the country. Stadiums have been turned into isolation centers across the country, in Lagos, in Abuja, in Port Harcourt. They've turned stadiums into isolation centers. People are responding to treatment. You see people playing, laughing, dancing in isolation centers. Women that are pregnant are giving birth in isolation centers. Old people, 93-year-old, very old people are recovering from coronavirus. CNN did not mention that Nigeria is handling 2 infectious diseases. They're handling Lassa fever, and our Center for Disease Control is handling Lassa fever and coronavirus, and I think they are doing fairly well. CNN did not mention that. CNN did not mention all the small innovations that small Nigerians are doing across to make it happen. Yeah, but it's amazing how they laser focus on the bad news only and leave out the positive stories. I don't know if you noticed that Western media has gone cricket silence on all the innovation coming from Africa this COVID-19 period. No one is talking about Rwanda's robot nurses. No one is talking about Senegal's rapid test kits and 3D ventilators. Ghana is using drones to make tests faster. Madagascar's cure is only talked about in a negative light. And all the positive innovations that have come out across Africa, the Western media is not talking about it because it does not propagate the story of poverty. So I want you to notice something in the pattern of reporting. You see, the devastation that happened in Italy was mostly reported with figures and graphs and charts. They used more numbers, and even if they had to show people, they only showed people who were sick in the hospital, and they only showed coffins without necessarily showing the people in the coffins. You know what I mean? But during the Ebola crisis, not only did they show people in the hospitals, they showed the families who were grieving, the families who were sad and wailing for their loved ones. The camera followed them. They followed them to the grave. A funeral is a private stuff, right? New York Times, even won a Pulitzer for journalism, for covering or following the trail of the dead, following dead people to their resting place. I mean, that's just much. Don't touch it. Just go back and end this. So in conclusion, guys, there is definitely a sponsored propaganda against Africa to tell the world what to think about Africa and to tell Africa what to think about themselves. Guys, this is the same propaganda they used against Gaddafi. Remember Gaddafi, the Libyan president who wanted an African currency backed with gold? Yes, that was the same propaganda they waged against him. They kept on saying that he's evil and he's killing his people and all of that, even though education was free and health was free and so many things were free in Libya at that time. They waged so much war against him that even Libyans began to think they were enslaved and began to believe that there is something better out there, And Arab Spring of 2011 happened and the West killed him. And now that Libya is in chaos, who do you think is benefiting from the chaos? Beware of Western propaganda, okay? And that's the reason why I appreciate YouTubers like Odemaya and Tayo Enya and people who tell African stories like it will never be seen in Western media. It's time for us to tell our own stories, guys. But part 2 of this whole conversation, how is the Western media reacting to the low number of coronavirus cases in Africa? That's what I'm going to be discussing in the sequel to this particular video. So you have to follow the link in the description box to watch. My name is Chizoba Adiola, and I hope if you enjoy stories like this, subscribe to my channel, like and share. I will see you again next week. Bye.